4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Leadership Circle. It's Tuesday evening, and I'm stuttering over my words. It's great to see everybody. JR, Dina, great to have you. Great to be back each and every week. We are here. We're talking about releasing and purging. As the few of us here on this Leadership Circle call, we're talking about the benefits of that and also the struggles of letting go and releasing. So it's always good to be here. Welcome back to the Leadership Circle. It's an honor to be here with the both of you. I'll pass it over to you and either of you, if you want to talk a little bit about what is purging, what is releasing, and then I'm going to jump on my Facebook and I'll be right back. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, you do that. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, JR. So yeah, we got to talking, purging, releasing, letting go. That seems to be a theme right now with a lot of moving around, a lot of staying home and operating with most of our jobs from home. Spending a lot of time in the house has kind of, prompted some, maybe you as well, to kind of go through things and see, how do we let go? How do we create space for the new? And what's our energy like? What makes it hard to let go of things?
Well, I know for me, sometimes I have memories attached to things. Like we were kind of talking about different notebooks we had from this event. And I have like 3 or 4 jackets, made by the same, company. I have 5 side jackets and this and that. I have a blanket that I've never used, but I don't want to throw away. And then you get to a certain point where you have all this stuff because it means something. Then you're just clogging everything. And as I learn about energy, if we're actually talking about stuff, not even metaphorically speaking, as I have been releasing stuff in my house, the energy can flow more. And so it's even like toxins in our body. As we release things, energy can flow. So when I redid my kitchen, we got to throw away a whole lot of stuff. So by throwing that stuff away, my house has less stuff in it. And I can just feel the flow of the energy. I feel lighter, if we're talking about actual stuff,
Mm-hmm. Physical material. Yeah, we were, and I can share that going through a process of moving. It's interesting over the past 8.5 years of what I've accumulated, and my daughter and I have accumulated. And I can agree with you, JR. It feels much lighter. Although I want to share that it's been very difficult too, going through stuff, seeing things that bring up memories or emotions or experiences or whatever, but actually letting go of it. Now, there's probably different levels to this. I feel like there's items that I've kept or that I've held on to that meant something to me emotionally. And then I'm going through my closets and going through my rooms and my garage and seeing all these things that I'm just not even utilizing. They're just there, right? And so as to JR and Dina's point of like, it actually occupies space. And when we open that space up, like it makes room for new stuff to come through. And I just wonder, how often people take the time to do that, like spring cleaning, or that, is it an annual thing? Is it a monthly thing? Moving into the new house, like I've told myself many times over, I'm not going to do this again. Like I have to minimize the things that I'm obtaining and like holding on to. It's been interesting. There's definitely been different emotions going around.
I think we all have different stuff that we like. My house, I have tools everywhere. I have tools I haven't used, and I have tools from grandpa, and I have just, and then my wife is into crystals. So we got crystals everywhere, and my kids, it's toys, and you get a house filled with people who like stuff. All of a sudden you could, you know what I mean? You could be like, my kids, so many people love my kids. They get so many toys from people and so many things are given to them. It's just like, so grateful to have so many people love, my kids, but at the same time, give them a hug, not a toy. It's with COVID, you can't hug them. I guess there's dogs, but yeah, it's just like, they're so loved. And a lot of people show love through gifts, especially, Japanese people. And so, so there's love. So there's lots of toys. So we get to purge and give them away, and then they get to learn, about giving stuff away and helping others, which is, a 4-year-old doesn't always want to give away his Batman toy, even if he has 10 of them.
Okay. There's
My
the-
daughter had an assignment that she had to put her goals on paper with school, and so I have to turn these in from week to week. She's like, Dad, I gotta turn in these assignments, so I have to take her schoolwork and bring it to the campus. And I started reading this, and one of the 10 items that she set up as a goal was to give her toys to other kids that she's no longer playing with. Well, interesting enough, I read that like last week, and then over the past like 5 days, we've been boxing up, and I got to her room, and she's got 2 closets, and one of the closets is dolls and toys and Pokemon and all of the things that she's loved collecting. And we had a conversation last night. It wasn't too easy. I was kind of struggling, I think, with it when I'm like, what are we going to do with all this? Like, we need to box all this stuff up. It needs to go. And after talking with her, I didn't bring up her goal list. However, we came to a conclusion that she's going to keep a few of the items and then donate the other items to kids or family, friends, or whatever. It's just so much. But JR, you're right. You know, I mean, I'm laughing because, you know, you accumulate all this stuff, right? When it comes to like friends and family, and they want to give our kids gifts, which is a great feeling to receive. But it's our home that these gifts and these toys start to
take over,
accumulate, pile up in. And it's like, I love it. I never want to tell somebody not to give to our children. I just hope they're mindful that, you know, we're the ones that are having to occupy, like to find storage for all
so
this.
like when someone without kids gives you a huge dollhouse, you're like, where the F am I supposed to put this thing? And it's like, okay, I'm giving your kid a BB gun when they turn 1. You know, or like those popper things that snap the pop. You know, like my sister gave my kids like the super case from like Costco, and I was like, we're going to your house to open those.
Right? My brother does that with me all the time. It's like, as I'm getting, you know, when my nephews were younger, and he's just like, Dina, you don't have to live with that in the house. Like, that toy makes so much noise. So no, you don't get to pick. Like, we'll pick, or you just keep that where you're at, and when they come visit you, you can play with it all you want.
Yeah.
So
but you know, there is an emotional release when it comes to purging or releasing. I mean, it definitely feels lighter. As I'm looking around my house, there's just boxes everywhere right now, and a part of me feels really good about some of the items I was able to gift. Like, there was a few items that others received, and they were so happy to receive these, yet they were just items that were sitting, you know, whether it was in my garage or my storage. I'm like, just got to let go of this. And I made a promise to myself. I'm like, moving forward, you know, I'm just not going to accumulate. So I got to be mindful of that too. I've always thought that like the simple life of just the necessities is all I want. You know, it's been very attractive to me. Maybe instead of having 20 plates and 20 bowls, I can have 4 plates and 4 bowls, and not needing a cabinet full of stuff. But letting go of it has been a good feeling, and hopefully I'm going to be mindful moving forward and just like ease up. You know, I just don't need to accumulate it, because as our point was made earlier, that's the more you have, in my opinion, the more I have, the more like I feel, I don't know, stuck, or just like busy, or like cluttered, or like
clogged almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I almost hear some type of a ritual coming up, right? Maybe something that we create around this, some form of a check-in, just kind of like reevaluate, you know, similar to a lot of the other rituals or traditions that exist. So it's like, how do we safeguard ourselves so we don't end up in the same situation, you know, next time we're coming to move. So it's
Well, I heard someone once say, how do you get a new wardrobe? You know, you throw away all your clothes. See how fast you get a new wardrobe. You know, and so when we get rid of stuff, we open up the room for new stuff. And what I think about what what I collect, and I think as humans we collect our habits, you know, just to kind of spin it from the actual to the metaphorical, is how many habits we collect that aren't serving us. I mean, I drank for so many years, not even going out. I don't even think, you know, it was doing anything other than just being a habit. You know, I wasn't going out and hanging out with friends. It was just something I was used to. Even like TV and stuff, when I was just used to, when the kids go to sleep, turn on the TV for so long that, like my mom, she watches the news, and it seems like I think I could say most retired people in America watch the news all day. I mean, and it's like habit. And so how many habits do we have that we don't even know, just like the stuff we collect, and we're doing all these things, we don't even know why we're doing it, that we could release these habits. And so that's one of the things that I this year have had a chance to kind of think about, and I think we all do, and maybe it's something we can all do a little bit more, is what are the habits we're doing that aren't serving us, and we don't even know why we're doing it. Maybe because our parents did it, maybe because their parents did it. You know, there's certain ways that my wife makes rice. And I asked her, like, why do you stir the rice after? Because I wanted to hear what she would say. I had my own thoughts. It was a loaded question. She didn't know it was loaded the way I presented it, but why do you stir the rice after it's done every time? And because that's what mom did. That's what grandma did. And I was like, well, what is it doing? And she's, you know, she knew where I was going at that point. So, you know, but it's like, how many things do we do just because? So I have your turn.
I like the analogy. It's almost like our beliefs or our habits or our routines are kind of like the closet inside of us, right? And so like, what are we storing in there and hanging on to, and what's sitting there that's not being used, or what's sitting there that's just occupying space, or what things are we not willing to let go of because we're attached to them, or
one day we're gonna need it, or one day we're gonna, you know, go back and look through it, and you know,
at some point it served us.
Absolutely. And I think it's that parting, it's the part, like it is the memory. I don't know. One of the things that has helped me a little, and I say a little because I have a lot of work to do in this arena. However, I am excited and looking forward to this, you know, this decluttering, but not just decluttering. It's really the purging, releasing, and even the way of reframing it. But one of the things that I did for a while, like in the steps along the way, has been to just take pictures, right? Because like now the pictures are digital, you know. Back in the day, I mean, I have boxes of albums, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to go through and like get these scanned because they they're taking up space. But sometimes it's just taking a picture. It's that little like that piece of like, okay, now it's not going to be gone forever. I mean, it's always within us, but it's not going to be gone forever, because it's like there's a visual representation of it if we ever really needed to go, you know, take a trip down nostalgia lane.
You know, any place I go to, here's my I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Wherever I go, this is kind of a habit of mine. This is one of those things where I'll find like a rock or like a twig or like some little object I found. And then I have this big glass bowl that's just a collection of like, oh yeah, that's when I was in, you know, wherever, Egypt or Dubai, or I have to have, so I collect this bowl. And that's probably, I don't know, I think I like it because I can look at it and kind of reflect and go through it. But I'm thinking about your idea of taking a picture, Dina. And it's like, oh, that's an option. You know, I don't necessarily need to hang on to a piece of rebar or, you know, all of this stuff that I just have.
No, that rebar though, that no, I'm teasing.
You get it though, you know, it's like that piece of like, oh, well. So that's an option, I guess, is taking pictures of it and keeping a digital copy. And so, yeah, that's a good point, JR. You made a really good point about how that connects with our habits or with beliefs.
Well, and habits, you know, are kind of how we create our life, right? And if we can plug in some good habits, we're like, yes. And then as we pick up the bad habits, we start, why, you know, we should on ourselves. You know, and how easy it is to get in and out of habits. You know, I was thinking about this with my daughter, because in the beginning of the COVID lockdown, I was doing push-ups and pull-ups like a monster, like all the time. And I was in the best shape of my life. Pull-up bar was up at all times. That was like the first half. And the second half, there was like gone. And my daughter's like, remember when you used to do pull-ups, Dad? Like taunting me. And she's like, Dad, how about you do 5 a day? And so like, that's like her. She's like, Dad, did you do your 5? And you know, I've done more than my 5. But the days I haven't, I'll be like, thanks. And she's like helping me build a good habit. So we can also help each other and encourage each other to create these habits. Because once we lock them in, they more or less become a part of us. You know,
No, I was just gonna say, and there's a part of that where it's like there's the adding in new habits, and then at some point it kind of forces us, because I feel like with habits sometimes it's like, well, I'm not always thinking about them, right? Because I'm so on autopilot, like I'm not necessarily aware of even what the habits are. So it's like taking an inventory, but also realizing that even bringing on or adapting or adopting new habits requires maybe that some will have to be released or let go of.
well, if you're exercising a lot, it's only a matter of time before you start eating healthy. You know what I mean? It's just some of these things build on each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to a lot of what you just shared. Starting a new habit, like the green smoothie thing that I was like, yeah, I'll do it for 10 days. And then I was like, oh, I'll do it for 30 days. So I kept it going. And now I'm like 45 days in or something, but it became a habit to where now when I don't do it, I'm like, or when I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't have my green smoothie this morning. Like, you know, I feel like off, like I have to make sure that I stay on discipline, stay on purpose. And what do they say? 21 days to create a new habit. I mean, everybody's got 30, 21, whatever it is. Truth is when you get going, it's that momentum. You do create good habits, create momentum, and then it just becomes a way of life. It just becomes a way of doing things. It's no longer, it's effortless, right? And becomes part of the standard. But the same thing can happen if you're not careful on the other side. And I think that's a good point to make too, is that we don't think about like if it's drinking or whatever habits some of us may have it, that, you know, it's the momentum. Huh?
I was listening to a lecture today.
Yeah.
It's talking about war was a bad habit of the humans. And it was just a bad habit that we needed to knock off. And I mean, it was longer than that 30 seconds, but even described war as one of our bad habits as a human. And as we're evolving, we're going to shift away from that. But I'd never heard of a habit for like the species. But yeah, war is a bad habit of the species, you know, of humans. Or it seems to repeat itself.
Yeah, and they're handed down through generational, ancestral, right? I mean, there's stuff that's still, I was watching a video or reading something, it was like, it's a lineage of like 7 different generations that we still have or obtain. I don't know if it was habits that they were talking about, but just how 7 different lineage, like different great-great-great-great-grandma to great-great-great-grandma, like all that stuff is handed down to one to the other to the other. And so we're a collection of even 7 different pastimes. I mean, past lives, whatever that we have. And so it could be stirring the rice. That could be what great-great-great-great-great-grandma did. And then that became the thing that now Michelle's doing, you know?
Do you remember the story also of, I think we heard the story once, but it was just more of the fish in the frying pan. And it was this girl would come and she would chop off, and I may be butchering it, but for the most part, she would basically cut the head, like the head portion and the tail portion, and throw the fish in the frying pan, and just did that over and over and over. And then, the daughter sitting there asking her mom, like, Mom, why do you do that? And she's just like, well, because that's the way that, mom did it, and her mom did it, and her mom did it, and her mom, whatever it was. But when they got down to it, it was just the reason they did it was because the frying pan was too small and it wouldn't fit the entire fish. But now we have frying pans that are much larger and the whole fish would fit in it. But because we never questioned why, right? Like, why are you, like, what's there must have been a reason. Now, whether that reason warrants itself to continue for us to like adopt that way, or it's outdated, we won't know unless we actually ask those questions and try to understand, like, what was the wisdom behind it, or what was the reason for it? And so that's always something, it's with parents sometimes, or even children, because children are super curious, right? Like they're at one point in time, their favorite word is why.
Mm-hmm.
And because I said so doesn't necessarily doesn't stop it. But that curiosity that they have, I mean, I think as if we adopt that same curiosity from a place of wanting to be better, wanting to learn, not out of, why, like, and, getting people defensive, but just more of having that stance, then it also allows us, even with ourselves, as we question like the habits that some of them we've inherited. We weren't even aware that we got them, but we got them. Some of them are wired in our DNA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, go ahead. I thought I saw you.
Well, and when we change our habits, we can change the trajectory of our lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we make a big change, then you're also changing the outcome of the world. One of the things that was I quit drinking about 3 years ago, and I'm Irish, and it just seemed like everyone I knew and everyone in my family just drank a lot, and that was just how it is, and it was fun. But I quit when I was talking to a healer lady, and she's like, you come from like the long line of liver cirrhosis, like generation after generation after generation of liver cirrhosis. She's like, you just stop that in your history, like from going forward. And I never thought about like, but yeah, like my kids, there's not drinkers around my kids. Well, they'll drink and people, but it's not like where I was raised, where every single adult was, partying. They could be spraying each other with champagne. Who knows? At any given moment, grandma could be doing that. But it's just like once we make that change and we change our lives, we change the directory of our kids and the world, because the other people we're influencing, we were around, we influenced, whether we know it or not. So
that really resonated, that piece of like that stopped there, right? Like it's kind of like, okay, no, like up until here it was on its own autopilot, and it stops here, and it's like you are creating new outcomes and new results and new possibilities for generations to come. That's awesome.
That's how powerful we are, all of us. Like we make these changes, we don't realize how connected we all are, right? Like we make the change for ourselves, it affects the world.
Mm-hmm.
It does, though. That's how connected everyone is. It's like when you heal yourself, you're almost healing others, and it's how it happens. We're all seeing each other. Someone's watching you, someone's looking up to you, whether you like it or not. And by making a change for yourself, you change that person, or they changed, and you'll never
ripple effect. Yeah.
That's so true.
I like that. I mean, the positive influence that I may have with my daughter, and negative, it does get shared out there with the neighborhood kids. It gets shared out with the next, and they share, and it doesn't just stop with her. That's good.
I saw Devin bossing around Hero. My daughter is almost 10, my son's 4, and Devin was bossing around like, "Come on, get over here!" And I was just like, "Shh, that's me," that. And I humbled myself, and I took her to the side and I said, "Sorry." And I was like, my dad used to set me up with impossible tasks, and when I couldn't do it, he would just come down on me so hard. So it was just so frustrating that you'd almost want to give up. And I could see that I'd been hard, because she's great and I want her to be great. And I was just like, I got to like learn. I saw how she was talking to a 4-year-old, and like, where did she learn that? So it's just one of those things. As long as we're aware, we can kind of see what's going on, and if we're open, we can kind of see our weaknesses when we're looking.
How awesome is that, though? Like I admire, I mean, both of you, I admire your commitment to growth, to being on the journey, to being like just rock star dads that you guys are. You know what I mean? And being able to like you're leading a generation by example. And in that situation, it's like, wow, how awesome is it for your daughters to have, dads that have these conversations, that aren't, they're seeing this dynamic, they're seeing a healthy relationship of like, okay, like you're changing it for men worldwide, but also for women and for girls that are growing up into women, like that they get to see this, that it's okay to kind of own up and to lead by that example. And I'm just want to give you guys props and just like, yeah.
Well, if we come from everything's perfect, Matt had his, childhood without his father. I had a very rough relationship with my father and kind of a toxic relationship. Where without those experiences, who knows if we would have had the drive to be great dads, and I don't think I would have. So I don't want to change anything. And if I didn't have the experience that I had, I wouldn't have this drive to be a great dad. So that's what, when these things happen to us, that's what I've always told. It's always a gift. We don't always see it. That thing that was horrible, that may come in handy later on in life. And maybe when you're 90, you're just like, oh, maybe we don't ever know, but everything's a gift.
And though, so yes, and their choices, like you made a choice and you committed to this path, right? There were other choices that could have been made, yet this is a true choice, right? Because true choice, we know that when we desire and we want to do something, then we make that choice and then we commit to it because it's coming, like it's rooted deep down, like something wanted to come out, and that's how it shows up. Versus like I should be, or this is what a so-and-so person would do, and so I should do that. It's not propelling people usually forward sustainably long term, if that makes sense. It ends up being something like, okay, it was cool for now, and now I'm bored, and because it didn't come from that true choice. So I hear you. It was a gift, and you chose to see it as a gift, and you chose to be on the path that you're on. So
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good, great notice, and I'm sitting here in my head, and thank you, Tina. I really, really appreciate you see the light. You see JR as an incredible father and see me as an incredible father. And as JR touched on, like, so habits or beliefs, are embedded or can be at a very young age. And growing up with an absent father, I made a commitment to myself and that I'd always be present, with my children. And this is just a decision I made a long time ago. And although maybe throughout growing up, maybe it didn't feel good. Maybe there's times I questioned, or maybe there was times I felt left out or jealous of other friends who were hanging out with their dads and doing things. And, in the moment, it may not have felt good, but I think we were talking about this too recently, that, everything that's happening is a gift. It just depends on how and what you choose to see. And so for anybody that may be experiencing things that don't feel good right now, there's always a lesson behind whatever the experience is. And it may come, it could pop up tomorrow, but it might be 3 years from now where we get to look back at it and be like, wow, that's one of the greatest things. And I got many of those, and I'm sure we all do. You guys can probably relate, but there's many stories where I've been like, it was bad. It was really tough. And I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then in the end, or at some point later on in life, it's like, oh my gosh, that was the best thing. The absent father that wasn't in my life, like, I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be the man father that I am today. And maybe there's parts of me that still wonders what it would look like, but like, I just got to be grateful for this and what I get to have with Morgan and what I get to have with my daughter. And then I get to give that to her. And now she gets to have that new relationship and stop the story from, going the wrong direction. Right. But it's a great notice. I got off on there. I started like, wow, yeah, it's a good notice.
It's awesome. And I mean, we won't delve into, but like, as you were mentioning, I think, Matt, I'm not sure if it was like kind of referencing like some of the intergenerational trauma, right? Like generations before could have been impacted on a collective trauma, and that gets passed down. Like that's in epigenetics, like it's in the DNA. Yet each of us, we have that opportunity, or we can look at it as a responsibility, however we want to look at it, that we don't have to keep it going, right? Like we can take the time right now, address what needs to be addressed. Some of it is not it's not supporting us in the life that we want to have. So being able to give it the attention, address it, and see how to shift it, how to use it as a tool so that our lives are improved, and then future generations, like, okay, it can stop. Like now we can actually alter our DNA past, more past the healing down.
And if I was just gonna say, if people are wondering, like, how do we do it? Like, what do you do? How would you stop that? For me, in the last year, I've taken a non-traditional approach where I work with healers. I tell them my issue. I'm like, anger is really it's my dad, and literally there are people that can help with that kind of stuff. And there's also a therapy and therapists and stuff like that. And I think once we're aware and we take some initiative to at least intentionally move towards it, solutions will, once we're open to, something, solutions will show up.
Compassion and capital F, forgiveness, for me, is somebody once taught me compassion is understanding somebody's lack of understanding. And so if I don't have energy on like the absent dad or whatever, it's like, who knows what this man was or what he experienced or what was going on there, right? But more so for me, like with many other areas of my life, including that, was forgiveness. That was a really key, crucial part in being able to detach or break away from what could have been detrimental, ended up being very, a positive thing for me. But forgiveness is not, it's easy to say and not always easy to do, but it is the most freeing feeling when you like fully commit to a forgiveness from family, loved ones, relationships, whatever it is, just purely forgive and like let it go, which is releasing and purging, right? Forgiving that. And those are two key components that I feel have been effective for me. And JR, I think we've talked many times too, that's, you would probably agree, yeah?
Absolutely.
Wow. Releasing and purging. And here we are.
Talking about forgiveness and just adding to that, the self-forgiveness, right? Forgiving our younger selves sometimes, because
forgiving self, super big.
Yeah.
I did a class, I did EK Pono, where at the end of the class, you write your deep secret, and everyone has different levels of what that is, but just stuff that we hold on to that we're never told anyone. And it's just really not helping you. And you write it down and the person reads it and he throws it away and he never tells anyone, but at least you got it off your chest. And even that was beautiful, and that kind of made sense, probably why confession was invented or something like that. I never went to convention, but I can see how that would be like freeing and, to be able to just say this stuff and get it off your chest. But yeah, even something like that can just, some of the stuff we carry, some of the stuff that I've carried around in guilt for stuff that I didn't do, but I thought I did, or I made it up. So many kids think that it's their fault that their parents got divorced or this and that we just carry around, just like habits, that when we release it, it's almost like, I can breathe again. There's been certain times where I've released things and it's just been like, I'm a new human being, and so, whether it's releasing a person in your life. I had a best friend that, God bless him, he wasn't great for me, and I let him go, and he was devastated, and we had been through a lot, and he was there for me. He's very loyal too. So it was hard, but I had to do it. And, some people would say it's wrong, and to each their own. But it can be hard, but it was one of the best things I did, freed me to start growing. Not that I don't want to blame him for holding me back, but when I was hanging out there, I was holding myself back and surrounding myself with certain people that had lots of excuses. And, not to say it's them, but by breaking free, whether it's a new crowd, a new business, a new group of friends, you kind of become who you hang out with. So by releasing some of these toxic people in your life, things in your life, might even be a pet, and releasing things that aren't serving you in order to make your world better, regardless of the judgment from anyone.
Yes, and sometimes releasing certain pets, it's they benefit too from it, right? They end up having a life that is more in line with what they're capable of, and I got you.
The environment, though, that was a good point there, JR. That struck a chord for me. And so sometimes releasing things or people in our life, purging your circle, taking a look at who it is that you're surrounding yourself with, who it is that you're occupying your time with. We become those that we surround ourselves, right? It's like the top, 5 people that you surround yourself most with apparently is, a direct reflection of who we are, behaviors that we display. Environment is huge, man. If I go back like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, what my weekends looked like pre-Morgan, like much different environment than where I'm at now, right? And so those are the gifts that come with parenting and discovering, values and such. But still to this day, I've got to take inventory. The environment is, that's another Joe Dispenza thing. He's talking about the field. I think I discussed this the other day, but super important, man. I do agree 1,000% that when you change your environment, change reality, things change from there for sure.
Even you moving houses is going to create something different.
Yeah. And I've got emotions attached here in this house because of all the memories and all the holidays and all the, everything that's come for over the 8.5 years. And I come from a place of gratitude with like, this has been awesome. And I have pictures, I have tons of pictures of all the holidays and all the memories that took place in this house. But that new beginning and that new environment, absolutely, Jared, for sure.
And in a way, like, again, it's still that message of one door closes, right? Like this is one door closing, but there's another one opening, maybe even multiple ones opening that it's part of the adventure of finding out, like, what'll you create?
Yeah. Where you go.
Yeah, and if I'm tuned in, like wherever I'm at, there's, and I'll go there, abundance and beauty and gratitude and great people. And I've got one of the best neighbors, I've had some really great neighbors. I've got one of the best neighbors ever. These are my top 5, one of the greatest guys. And if he's watching this, Randy, I love you. And he literally is like, we're talking Friday morning, Saturday mornings. It's like dinner over the fence. It's like, we've got each other's back, whatever. And a big part of getting up and uprooting and leaving, it's transplanting, right? So here I am coming from this, but I'm transplanting over to a new environment where my roots can grow deeper, my branches can grow farther, and there's more to be had. But I have emotions around the move with things like that. But, coming from gratitude and everything that's been created here, it's a good release, man, but it's definitely, there's emotions tied to it. It's just, it's part of life, right? And if we force it, or if we strangle it, or we want it to be a certain way, again, we've talked about this many times before. It's like, it's not how it works. It's not how it flows. We got to be, I'm ready for what's to come, and I'm looking forward to it. Know that wherever I go,
there you are.
There I am. And more abundance is created, and new things can emerge, right? New neighbors and new friends, and
you get to keep, you get to keep all that you've created, right? You get to take that. It may look a little different, yet that essence piece is still there. They still exist. It may not be dinner over the fence. However, it can look.
We got a plan already. Like this guy's like, oh yeah, I'll be by, and we'll be, we'll have a dedicated day every month that we're going to hang out and dinner. And so it only gets better, right? It doesn't, it's growing up, right? It's growing out, it's expanding, it's being in the flow and being willing to go. And so where every one door closes, another one does open. And you got to honor, because sometimes, you know, I just thought of somebody specifically I had a great conversation with, and this person's experiencing the question of a door closing and whether or not that, you know, is what it means and what's next. And it's like, you know, bro, honor that everything that you got and everything that you learned, not what you got, but what you learned from here to here, and be ready for that next level, that next chapter. And we get to take with us what we want. So take with you the good, right? And the lessons, because that's very important. We can't go back into a new situation, call it whatever it is, and bring the same old stuff with us, because we're just going to get the same result, doing the same thing over and over. So it's like shifting on that.
Yep. Spotting it, right? And being like, oh, last time that happened, this is what I did, and this is what I wish I would have done had I known, and now I do know, so now I get to do.
Yeah.
It's the awareness, you know, once we start being aware. When you were talking, Matt, you triggered some thoughts in my mind. In my childhood, I moved a lot. And for whatever reason, one of my punishments, my dad decided instead of hitting me, he would wreck my stuff, right? So he wouldn't beat me up, but he would, anything I like, I'd save up for a pair of Nikes and he'd wreck them and stuff. So I had the habit of no attachments. You know, I don't need nothing. I could even get to a point with people and friends, right? That's probably why it's easier for me to say goodbye than other people, you know, because I was always on my own, or at least I felt I was. I was a runaway at 14, or 13. I lived on my own for like 6 months. And so it was always no attachments. And so with my wife, that was one of the things. We've been together like 20 years, but in the beginning, she's like, you can give up on people, you know, and you can just whatever and move on. And I know that I'd always be, or at least I believe that I'll always be okay. And so it's the behaviors that we're doing that aren't serving. That wasn't serving me at all, that behavior. There's probably a little bit that was serving, but for the most part, it wasn't serving. And so our behaviors, as we change and what's serving, what's not serving, these are the things that we can purge. It can be habits, it can be behaviors, it can be stuff. It's just like things that aren't serving us.
And even with that though, JR, like it did serve at a point, right? Like there was
Absolutely.
a time and place where it totally served. And that's kind of like how you were able, and how we all, like some of our habits, like they started for a reason. So they served a purpose. I like your idea of like, it's not serving me anymore, right?
Necessary anymore.
Because the circumstances are different and the situation's different.
I'm safe now. I have people that love me, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
We were talking last week, I think it was about just how history does repeat itself if you don't come in and do something different. So maybe we'll save that for another conversation. I know we're approaching our mark, but that came up for me. And then one other thing I'll close up with here is several of my mentors use this process of like what worked, what didn't work. Right. So when things come to a close for whatever it can be, or you're ready to purge whatever it is or release whatever it is, it's like evaluating what of that was effective, what of that was great, call a relationship. Like you get to take a look at what did work, and because there's some gems there that we want to take with us. And then there's things that didn't work, and those are the things that we definitely want to acknowledge, but we don't necessarily want to take with us. So it's like taking inventory of the experience and going, what worked, what didn't work, and learning and knowing what to let go of, what to stop doing, and what to take with us as we move forward. So with purging and releasing, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. To me, that's what's coming up for me right now. Always a great pleasure being with you guys and having these conversations. I hope those who are watching this got great value. If so, feel free to share it along with your friends. See us next Tuesday in a new house, and we'll be in a new environment. But I appreciate the both of you. It's always a pleasure, and I dig Tuesdays, man. Thank you.
Likewise. Do we have an invitation for purging and releasing some, either a habit or physical items?
Yeah.
I'm committing to physical items, and I will explore a habit. I will purge a habit.
Replace it with a new one or just let go of one that's not?
I was just thinking, like, you read my mind. I'm like, I want to take inventory and at least commit to really like letting go of like purging a habit. And yes, I will replace it with a more functional
You're going to love me. By when?
by next Tuesday. No, it'll be sooner than that. I'm taking inventory today. So by tomorrow morning, the new one will have made its way
I love it.
and be practiced. And I'll send you a text letting you know.
That's what support looks like. Yeah. JR?
When I think of purging and releasing, and this just popped in my head, I think of Buddha and the bliss that comes from the emptiness, and that we don't need a lot of the stuff that we think we need. And there is a happiness in the nothingness. So I'll leave you with that. Peace be the journey.
Be love, be light, be aloha. Thank you for watching the Leadership Circle. We'll be back next Tuesday. We love you. Peace.
Peace.